4 years ago today, I had just heard the news that Senators Jon Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock had won their Georgia runoff races and were headed to the United States Senate. So I was jubilant. So I turned on my TV, ready to see more of the news, and what I saw shocked me. I stood like a little kid, just staring at the screen, mouth open, like looking at this.
Multiple capital injuries. Multiple capital injuries.
I remember the shock and the despair that I felt with what I saw on every news channel. And today, feeling the tremendous disappointment and, quite frankly, the heartbreak, I feel that the very woman who should have been taking the baton from President Biden was the one who so graciously honored and certified a peaceful transfer of power.
The votes for President of the United States are as follows. Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 312 votes. Kamala D. Harris Kamala D. Harris of the state of California has received 226 votes.
As this brilliant ad from the Lincoln Project reminds us, we cannot forget what happened that day.
We saw, we know what we heard. It wasn't spontaneous. They came prepared for battle. Body armor, chemical weapons, zip ties. Their mission, to overturn an American election.
We will never concede.
Outnumbered, brave law enforcement officers fought hand to hand to save our democracy. Many were wounded. One died the next day. Post-traumatic stress syndrome drove 4 January 6th heroes to suicide. Donald Trump calls this violent terrorism a day of love.
That was a day of love.
He's promised to pardon these violent criminals. That's wrong, evil.
Those people have suffered long, hard. And I think it's very unfair.
Don't let one man rewrite history. We know what we saw. We know what we heard. There are no alternative facts. Only the truth.
Rick Wilson, co-founder of the Lincoln Project, wrote this in his Substack. At this moment, there is a profound arrogance within the MAGA right over Trump's impending return to the Oval Office. To them, re-election wipes the slate clean. That is their twisted version of absolution. But it's one more illustration of their radical, post-conservative character. They can't or won't see the harm January 6th inflicted on America's national reputation and honor. There's an uncomfortable truth we still refuse to confront. A significant slice of our citizens no longer believe in the Constitution, the rule of law, the peaceful transfer of power, or the continuation of this republic. The greatest trick the MAGA devil ever pulled was convincing the media that this is all about economic anxiety and culture war. It's about competing visions of America, and MAGA's vision is dark, dangerous, and authoritarian. Historians will spill plenty of ink and electrons on Merrick Garland's failure to use his authority as Attorney General to pursue charges against Trump and his co-conspirators the instant he assumed office. We'll be paying the price for that inaction for decades. We know what January 6th truly was, an attack on our Capitol, the only successful mass terrorist assault on it in modern history. We all saw the chaos. And I know that millions of us are still in shock at how a man who led such a violent insurrection could possibly be taking office again. But Republicans are not for democracy. They are now an authoritarian party, and we have to face that and talk about it just like that. These are not two parties who are operating on constitutional norms and for democracy. And like all serial killers, because I am a psychology and crime nerd, Donald Trump is returning to the scene of his crime, where he went to murder American democracy, where a total of 5 police officers died, and so many others, like officers Michael Fanone, who suffered a heart attack, among multiple other injuries that day, and Sergeant Aquilino Ganell, eventually had to leave the police force because their PTSD was too great. So much for the bullshit that it wasn't violent. Just ask Michael Sicknick's family. And according to everytown.org, Capitol Police seized enough ammunition to shoot every member of the House and Senate 5 times. So in addition to these terrorists having weapons like bear spray and assaulting people with flagpoles and all of the other things, they also had guns and ammunition, and Donald Trump knew it damn well. If you recall Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony in front of the J6 committee, remember her saying that Donald Trump didn't want his people to go through the magnetometers because he knew that they had guns, and it was illegal to go to the Capitol Rotunda with guns and ammunition. I mean, the whole thing is just, we have to repeat this. We cannot let it disappear into memory. So these people are terrorists, and Trump has promised to pardon them all on his first day in office. So this is very similar to what happened right after the Civil War, when President Andrew Johnson gave clemency to the Confederate soldiers, and that ultimately gave them permission to terrorize the South and Black people and lead us to, well, where we are today, a continuation of the Civil War. Joyce Vance is a former federal prosecutor and a law professor, legal scholar, and I love her take. She's very measured, and she's just wonderful. Here she is in a conversation with Katie Fang.
So, Joyce, we know what happened post-Reconstruction. You did a fantastic article for the Brennan Center within which you wrote the January 6th defendants' return would give a boost to the white supremacists and domestic terror groups many of them participated in before they overran the Capitol, and it would severely dampen the deterrent effect of our laws against future aggression. We talked about accountability for others, Joyce, just a minute ago. Talk about this accountability for January 6th insurrectionists.
It all bleeds together, right? We are now facing a moment where a president who has outrun accountability for the insurrection would, in effect, pardon the people who made that insurrection possible. And Trump has said he intends to issue these pardons. He said he might do it within the first minutes of his new administration. So, Katie, you and I both know how the pardon process works. Typically, people file applications. They're considered individually. People who are violent, who are an ongoing threat to the community, aren't up for pardons. And Trump is really turning that broad power that he has on its head by considering restoring these people who, as you pointed out in earlier cases, these are people who've never shown any accountability for their conduct, who will be as, if not more dangerous upon their return, throwing them back out into communities, which is really the ultimate gesture of thumbing Trump's nose at the rule of law.
And, you know, this is the hardest part for me after listening to every legal scholar under the sun for the last 4 years talk about how our system and the norms would hold. Well, they did not. They did not hold. Our system did not hold. Donald Trump escaped justice. And not only that, he ascended back to the mother flippin' White House. At least Joyce Vance is realistic about that.
Him only, and yet he's about to raise his right hand and swear that he's going to defend and protect the U.S. Constitution again.
Well, and I expect he will do that unironically, with a sense that protecting the Constitution means protecting Donald Trump. But look, most of the guardrails are broken, right? Congress is now in Donald Trump's hands. He has a majority in both houses, albeit a slim one. And the question is whether new guardrails will re-emerge. I teach and I study in the area of democratic institutions. You know, nature abhors a vacuum. And I think something that we have to do as Americans is figure out how to rebuild the guardrails, whether that means looking ahead to the midterm elections and returning majorities in both bodies in Congress that would provide a balance to this increasingly imperial presidency, or whether some form of public voice will emerge that can check Trump. It's clear that we need new guardrails.
Yep, our system failed. Donald Trump pushed the norms and they broke. So it is up to us and our elected officials and our legal system to build new ones. I'll leave you with this because it's people like Tara Setmeyer, a former Republican Party strategist, who saw the evil that her former party has embodied. She writes, I will never forgive the Republican Party for its betrayal of our democracy, our Constitution, their oaths, the rule of law, and our law enforcement officers who risked their lives on January 6th to save their ungrateful, craven, hypocritical, morally bankrupt lives. I will continue to fight to defeat them and their despicable MAGA movement with every fiber of my being. Hear, hear. I love that and I am with her. I won't give up and I hope you don't either. And Vice President Kamala Harris set such an incredible example today. Just seeing her handle herself with such grace, really just, if she can do that after everything she's been through and the way that she's been treated, we can do this. So, as I say in every episode, I wish you peace, but fierceness too.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.